What a day for racing. Emirates Team New Zealand in port. Rossa, Prada Pirelli on starboard. And we talk about the crowds. It's a glorious afternoon for America's Cup racing. And you just get the sense that New Zealand suddenly have come alive with the magic of the America's Cup.
Hi everyone, this is the Royal New Zealand Air Force Formation Thunder crew. Flying down the harbour at 500 feet, we'll be past North Head, looping around Rangitoto and back up the viaduct to Whenupo. We wish Team New Zealand all the best today. As we say, we'll fly the plane, you fly the boat. Cheers and go well.
What a wonderful moment. Squadron leader Ian Tuke, that's right, the uncle of Blair Tuke, the flight control of Emirates Team New Zealand and their T6 Texan Beechcraft. How cool was that? It is a magnificent day for racing.
This is the race committee. The wind sampling is complete and this race will start on schedule.
3 minutes and 43 seconds and counting to the start of race. And look at the crowds that are on the Viaduct Harbour. They cannot wait for this thing to get on. It is jam-packed. Look at that. If you're watching around the world in some 196 countries, yes, you can get a little bit jealous. But right now, lads, it's time to go racing.
It's time to go racing, and this crowd on the water, Nathan, you know, it was always interesting when in my day, back in the day when I was racing these things, you see the crowds before the start, but as soon as the starting gun goes, everything disappears, and it's just absolutely to the race itself and focusing on what you have to do.
100% right. We might have boundaries. The spectators might be a little bit closer than probably what was when you were racing here in Auckland all those years ago. But you put the blinkers on when racing begins. It's you, it's the other boat, it's the shifts, and all that noise is gone. You know, Stephen was saying, you know, there's so much pressure on these guys and the fans are going to help them. They're not thinking about them right now.
And then finally, you're underway. I mean, do the nerves suddenly go as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think they definitely do. Whatever sport you play, athletes know how to focus, and focus means, like Nathan said, the blinkers or the blinders, as we would say. Put the blinders on and just deal with the task at hand.
Virtual eye giving you a beautiful view of what the stadium course looks like out on course A. In 2 minutes and 10 seconds, Emirates Team New Zealand are allowed to enter the pre-start area. Remember, port entry, 100% success rate so far in this regatta. And in come Emirates Team New Zealand. Look to the right of the screen, starboard entry. That's Rossa, Prada Pirelli. Remember, we're at 2 wins apiece here.
Not too early.
Here we go, turning.
Yep.
So what I'm most interested in today is what is the starboard entry boat going to do to try and break this curse of the starboard entry? Is it a myth or is it real? And I think in these lighter winds, that double manoeuvre gets really tough.
We've already seen a little bit of a break in the action where Prada is actually sticking themselves well down to leeward or to the right side of Emirates Team New Zealand, kind of taking almost like a blocking move towards the jibe that is likely coming on the red boat.
Just watch the green mark to leeward. So at the moment the pin's closed.
Hey, look at the jumps. Yeah, jumping.
Okay,
full face up.
Yeah. Easy leading, easy leading.
Up hard.
Board out, 2, 1, yep. No, turn up, Lenny. Copy. 24 knot.
On the wind here. The board's coming up.
Mine now. Still really early on pin, guys.
Board speed there.
Yeah, it's high.
Little high mine here. Building.
Paced up, yeah.
Building, guys. Massive.
They're quite slow here, Nathan. Really slow and dangerously close to being off the foils.
There you see that shot there. 20 knots is about the bottom speed that can keep it on the foil. Prada with the bigger foils can hang there a little bit longer. Both boats really struggling right now, or just early and killing time.
Trimming up. I might here a little.
We will gain time on
the gas if we can.
Rossa looking very strong at the
we will
moment.
gain time on the wave, okay?
Question is, are they early?
Kiwis are just trying to get up in the air right now, Nathan. I'm not so sure they're out of the water yet, and they're using that kind of that 90-degree wind angle to pop out of the water. Got them right down into bad air and in a really bad spot.
Okay, just charge here, charge the battery. Pass them the line, trimming up slowly.
No worries. Little up,
Trimming up, go.
Yeah, we're just going to get to attacking speed. Yeah.
Time to go racing. It's race 5, the 36th America's Cup match. And Rossa, Prada Pirelli across the line first.
3,
Wow.
Just a little longer then, we hold. Just a little.
The smaller foils in the lighter winds and the pre-start, and you can't get caught slow. That was leading back a little bit early on Emirates Team New Zealand, having to go slow, dropping off the foils and having the smaller foils and struggling to take off.
We all knew that one of the factors going into this was going to be the foil size and the ability of this boat to actually do down speed maneuvers in the pre-start. Would that be an advantage? Could they put themselves in a position to make it an advantage? They did, and they absolutely crushed that start.
So much for that port tack entry favour.
I've been trying to tell you that, Nathan, now for a couple of days. It's just
Hey man, the numbers don't lie. Now we're going to adjust the numbers. Let me just get my spreadsheet out here.
Average better pressure left.
Shirley, we finally broke the jinx, the port tack jinx.
Yeah, no more.
A massive error by Pete. I mean, you heard the slight panic in Blair Tuke's voice, you know, saying, you know, we're really, really early for this. And he knows that they have smaller foils and yet, you know, slowed down. A huge error. But it's closing up here, Kenny. This is far from over.
One, four down.
Pete, take now, guys. Go full face up, please. Average breeze.
So straight away into the cutter there from Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli. About a 200-metre lead. It's interesting, Freddie, when you were talking before about the wind out there, you were saying all the spectators on the right were making it softer. Is it still looking that way? You know, both boats heading to the left. What do you see from the helicopter, mate?
Yeah, 100%. There must be 2,000 boats down the right-hand side of the course, and the breeze is just lifting up over there. I reckon there's probably 7.5 knots on the right, and there's 9.5 knots on the left. And it's really interesting that Prada stood on and sailed into a little bit more pressure. They want the left-hand side from what I'm seeing.
Not exactly the start that the 2,000 boats out there were expecting to see here today, Stephen.
Not at all. We're in the opening leg of 6 in race 5 of the match, and well, Shirley said, massive mistake by Emirates Team New Zealand at the start, and we've talked about the starts. Win the start and you go a long way to winning the race. So there's still 5 and a bit legs to go, but it's going to be hard.
But using what you have to your advantage. You're trying to figure out how you match up against the other boat, Nathan. And there's no question, we've been saying it all along, this boat has a slow speed. Italian boat has a slow speed that they have consistently used to their advantage in all 3 of the rounds. And man, we just saw it again.
And they used it in that pre-start by jumping. They went early, and by turning, you know how the port tech entry boat, Team New Zealand, gets to choose when they come back. And Jimmy Spill and Francesco Bruni said, no, we're going to go back a little bit earlier because we know we can handle sailing slower on our bigger foils. So they happily took the lead. Both boats got really slow, and then they just climbed up out of that 17 knots, got on the foil, and great judgment by Francesco Bruni, Jimmy Spill, and the whole crew on board. There's more than 2 people on that, but man, it was played really well in that start to those guys.
Speed.
Stand by. Three, two, one. A little pressure out of this.
Every Italian who's popped out of bed about a half an hour ago have arrived to a really nice sight for them, haven't they?
Early in the piece, 200-some-metre lead to Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli. Again, this will be a huge psychological advantage. They blow if they can hold on to this lead all the way through the race.
Just early jibe, you
They
know.
want to break the momentum of what potentially Emirates Team New Zealand might have had.
Yes, living up.
Just hearing a little bit of chat on board Luna Rossa there about what they're going to do at the top. They're laying the top marks right now. Team New Zealand aren't. And it's softer on that right-hand side, as Freddie was saying, and I think they want to do a right-hand turn early jibe and stay in phase with that pressure.
Yeah, I think we stick with this early jibe, boys.
Yeah, copy.
No rush, because I want to give gas on him upwind.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, just keep an eye on him after the barroway.
Yeah,
I'll start your turn on the mark.
Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli go around the top mark.
2, 1.
Cool and confident. Just listen to the comms going on. They are so relaxed. and their fans will be lapping this up wherever they are around the world.
Three, right?
So Emirates Team New Zealand will come into the gate in a deficit.
Good angle there. Got a little bit.
Really, on the first leg, Kenny, when you take a look at this,
Nice angle there.
that deficit's going to be a
8 seconds
healthy
away.
one in favour of Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli.
4, 3,
They're right down
2,
to every
1
little
way.
detail as well. You heard Francesco Bruni talk about, let's continue here on port jibe, and we actually give them dirty gas. By gas, they mean disturbed air coming off the sails as they're passing going upwind. So no matter how far ahead you are, you're always trying to make it a bigger distance.
Fish is pretty stable. Yeah, good.
One thing here, though, Nathan, we have seen a fast boat downwind in the Kiwi boat, and the statistics absolutely bear this out. The Kiwi boat is quicker downwind. There is no question.
Yeah, we've been looking at the numbers from the last few days, and speeds of up to, what is it, 3 extra knots boat speed downwind. VMG gains as well, so similar angles but faster speeds. But I tell you what, if you're 280 metres behind, you're going to have to be a lot faster to close this race down.
Or alternatively, you're going to want the boat leading to make a mistake. And we saw yesterday with the problem with the board going down or not going down, potentially cost the Italians the race.
Nice pressure above us here. I think we just go to the boundary at the moment.
Surely the Italians are not really keeping in check with the Kiwis, or allowing them to break off to the other side of the race course, and it kind of shows that maybe Freddie is exactly correct. Look, that they like this side of the race course that they're heading towards, don't they?
3, 2, 1, turning down.
Yeah, I mean, I was quite surprised, Kenny, that they headed to the right-hand side of the track, you know, tucked right in under those spectator boats. There's like a good 1 or 2 knots different at the top of the track, and down the bottom it's much more even. And I could see that on the, I have the wind speeds coming off the 2 yachts. And Emirates Team New Zealand on the left-hand side of the track did have a, you know, a knot or 2 more. But they're also going faster.
Yeah. Okay.
Positioning here.
Well, you sure get punished in maneuvers, though, on a day like today, though, don't you? You want to, they're absolutely talking about minimizing maneuvers.
They are, and you know, they end up bouncing down the boundary. So, as Shirley said, Luna Rossa decided to go to that right-hand side where all the spectator boats are first. Then they're going to bounce over to the favoured side, and now they're going to bounce back over there as Team New Zealand are bouncing sort of opposite. So Luna Rossa are going to go over there twice, and Team New Zealand are only going to go over there once. So that, the way the geometry of the course works out, it's could be a bit of a gain here for Team New Zealand, only going to that side of the run one time.
Little gain to us there. Nice. What mark's he going to be around?
The noise
He's
that
going
we
to go
hear
right
on
turn.
board is the hydraulics actually moving that highly loaded, this is the clue of a twin-skin mainsail, of a double-skinned mainsail, back and forth. And the hydraulics are driven by all these guys grinding their grinders down below, pumping towards creation of hydraulic pressure. That's how all these sails are moved around.
Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli about to complete the second leg of 6.
3, 2, 1, slowly up.
32 seconds at the previous mark. We know that it might be maybe a little bit less with the downwind speed of Emirates Team New Zealand, but doesn't matter. There's one boat in front and one boat chasing, and you know which way that is.
A little bit of gas from him to get through. Right now we got a boundary. Just got to get through this gas.
Emirates Team New Zealand now heading towards the bottom gate for the first time.
Are we happy left then? Yeah, we're happy left. Copy.
No sound of panic on the comms, just getting about their business, trying to find how they can drag in this Italian boat. And look at that, no gain, 32 seconds again at the second mark.
5 right. -1.
My trap.
No wider, Pete.
My trap.
Coming up from the bridge.
Sì, sì.
Put pressure in 5, Pietro. Coming up more.
Trimming. Sì.
Good there.
It's quite a relationship between the guy driving the boat and the guy trimming the main. So Francesco Bruni there was talking to Pietro Sibello about the angle he's driving. If he wants to point up a bit, got to trim the main on a bit more. So that relationship is crucial.
Attacking probably in about
This is the lead off the start, though. You know, the boat behind is at a disadvantage because the boat ahead gets to control the race course and throw some bad air when they want to. But I'll tell you what, kind of like this reminds me of race 1. The boat behind is not getting further behind. That means they are not slow in this condition, that Kiwi boat.
My trap.
So we just go to speed attack as well.
Yes.
Forward.
We've been trying to get information out of the guys over the last few days, the sailors on board, as to what it is that's making it so hard to overtake. You know, we've seen in, I guess when I was racing in Bermuda in the America's Cup, there were quite a lot more lead changes. And I think the bigger difference that I've got out of the sailors so far is that these boats they're bigger, they're heavier, they have more sail area, which produces a bigger wind shadow, and the boat speeds are quite similar. We're not seeing people fall off the foils and tacks and things like that. The error rate is quite low, so once you're behind, it's quite hard. Freddie, you've done a lot of racing on these boats here in Auckland. You got any insights for us on what your options are when you are the boat behind, and how much of a penalty is it, you know, when you get the wind shadow?
I mean, like in all forms of sailing, Nate, the wind shadow is going to kill you. Up here in the sky, mate, you can draw a line down the middle of the course, left to right. Prada are protecting the left-hand side. They keep it standing out into about a knot and a half more breeze compared to the right, where they're bouncing Emirates Team New Zealand. The other thing is the step up in the tacks that the Prada do compared to Emirates Team New Zealand is unbelievable. The rate of turn, and they're just stepping up the ladder in every tack. Emirates Team New Zealand have a much harder turn rate to try and complete the tack quickly.
It's a better shift this time for us.
Kenny, I had to chat with some of the Luna Rossa guys today about how come the hook never works in that pre-start scenario, and they said just that the gas, the disturbed air is so big that you never cut through it successfully. So I think it's become much more of an issue than perhaps they thought it was at the beginning of racing.
And we're only really looking at, right now, I'm looking at some wind graphs, some true wind direction wind graphs, and there's really only about 10-degree wind shifts on the water, which in sailing terms isn't a whole lot. So that's another way for the boat behind to try to find something, and when there's not much there, it makes it an awful lot harder.
There's that wind graph that you were talking about. You can see it's just sort of flicking left and right.
About 8 to 10 degrees.
Not much, not enough to really get in phase. You know, races we saw earlier in the round robins where the sou'westers or anything off the land, and you get much more better shifts. But this light sea breeze, which is very, very common here in March, a light 10-knot sea breeze that's stable, and out on course A today, there's not many passing lanes out there.
Man, they're pounding them to the right. The Italians are pounding the Kiwis back to the right, but I'll tell you what, the meters behind are not getting larger. They're actually just kind of hanging in around 200, maybe even a little under right now. So again, the Kiwi boat has a fast mode. We know that. It always sails more distance, but man, are they fast, both upwind and downwind.
Little build here. Little build pressing.
Look at this flat. They sail with those sails in what is, you know, you wouldn't even be hiking on most normal keel boats right now. You wouldn't even have people on the rail, and these guys are sailing with board flat sails.
Plenty of apparent wind going across that boat. 10 knots of breeze, what, 25, 30 knots of speed. That's a lot of breeze across the deck. That's why they're so flat. Not foiling, on the other hand, you got to really camber them up get the boat
He's
going.
very tight on May. I think he could be around our mark at the moment.
About to complete the halfway stage in this fifth race of the America's Cup match in 2021 out of the Hauraki Golf. This course A in front of a magnificent spectator fleet, and it's all Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli at the moment. Remembering it is a 2-all scoreline. How much of a psychological advantage will it be again to win first race of the day? Because they seem to have a little bit of a habit of doing that.
No lower.
Looking at the clock on the bottom right of the screen, it appears that there's been small gains by Emirates Team New Zealand. 32 seconds at the bottom gate. They've picked up 10 seconds. That's a good upwind gain.
That's pretty impressive considering that they were getting tacked on the whole time and going up what we believe and what Freddie's been talking about is less pressure on that side. Freddie, did we miss something? Did the pressure change on that upwind, or is Team New Zealand going fast?
Yeah, I think Team New Zealand are going fast, Nathan. I didn't see anything that suggested they should have an advantage in shift or pressure, so they must have got the boat really dialed in on this second upwind.
Nice lefty for us, 10.
Okay, diving now. Release, release. Speed.
You know, Freddie was referencing the boats and their turning ability going upwind. Look at, I mean, talk about protecting the left side of the course. All those blue dots is Luna Rossa. All those yellow dots are the Kiwis. Luna Rossa wanted the left-hand side of the course, and they took it almost exactly down the middle of the race course. Phenomenal. That's great. That's great. A great show by Virtual Eye there, guys. That's match racing.
Yep. Bottom is even.
Very different downwind though, isn't it? The boat ahead can't affect the boat behind, so you end up sailing your own race downwind, and then upwind is when you go on the attack or the defense.
Jumping a bit faster, yeah.
Quick look at the numbers though, and look at this downwind at the moment by Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. They have really stretched that lead out. That's probably the largest lead so far in the race.
One, just turning down, getting a puff, just riding it out.
Yeah.
Board going.
Nice one. High rake.
Look at the heart rates there. Take a look at the grinders and what they're doing. And Freddie, you know all about that. Where is the key point where the heart really starts popping?
Yeah, we're coming into that key point now. At the moment, all the sails are very deep. The jib car is outboard. You're looking to get the most power out of the sails. So effectively, everything's very eased. But we're coming into the last 10% of the downwind. You've got to start getting ahead of the game. You've got to start stretching out the sails. You're already working really hard as the grinders because you've just come out of the jibe. Now you've got to move it up a gear and start getting the boat into upwind mode. You slingshot round the bottom, trim the mainsail on up to big tonnages, and then standby tack. It just does not stop on the bottom half of the course.
Why wouldn't anybody want to do that?
Well, I know Freddie would probably rather be in the match right now, but enjoy the view up on Alley 1, Freddie Carr.
You deserve it. It sounds like you deserve it.
Any other Team UK grinder giving us that true insight to the work rate that the grinders have to do.
They're working the geometry exactly how you would expect, Nathan, right? They're coming in, they're going to take the side of the course already. They're already thinking ahead. These runs and the geometry and where you jibe on the runs is working on where you want to be on the upwind leg. Well done by Luna Rossa.
And it is Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli who will complete the fourth leg, still in front of the defender, Emirates Team New Zealand. We keep using this one word, but flawless still comes to mind when you think about Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli. It is, wow, I mean, and it goes right back to before the Prada Cup final. The one key area they improved on was communication and getting everything right, and they are just rolling it right now as Emirates Team New Zealand finally get to that mark rounding and start the penultimate leg of race number 5 in this America's Cup match.
So they lose a little bit of time on that downwind. That's probably the first time they've fallen behind a little bit on the downwind. And I could hear in the comms in the background, you know, Francesco Bruni saying, my rate, my Trav, which means they've tacked. So instantly, Luna Rossa is setting him up again just to keep bouncing him up the right-hand side of the course.
You think they give him any clear air here?
Absolutely not.
That's the right answer.
Would you?
No, not a chance.
Turning.
There's a shock and turning. All over Italy, everybody I talk to, Luna Rossa is front page everywhere. It is a phenomenon. It has turned into a phenomenon.
It is when you think that football is so huge in Europe, and they've also got a team that races in Formula One called Ferrari. But right now, this is their Ferrari. Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli, and surely that must be so just encouraging for this team every time they hit the water.
Oh, Stephen, you know, I spoke to Max Serena, the skipper of Luna Rossa, about how big it was at home. He said it's the same as the 1982 Soccer World Cup when Italy won. You know, the entire nation was behind that team, and the momentum, the support is growing day by day for this team. They might not be here in Auckland cheering them on the boat, but goodness, they're all getting up in the middle of the night.
That's big.
That is big. But again, look at these distances are just almost, they're on a string back there. Once they start going upwind, there's no yo-yo here. They're on a string. They're in that 200-meter range, and that means that boat behind is actually hanging in there pretty good in a tough spot.
They're hanging in there, but they can't break through that 150-meter mark, can they? And unless you can get inside 150 meters, 100, and then get into 50 meters and start putting pressure, Luna Rossa will just keep doing this all day long. It just comes back to that start and brilliant execution, really, by Luna Rossa, that start, and setting themselves up for another race win at this stage.
True wind speed at 9 knots. The actual speed sitting around 21. It's still beggars belief.
And that's their slow speed. I love the upper left-hand corner where you see the foils going out of the water, that cant angle of 60 degrees. There's a lot of variation as to how teams were playing those cant angles and trying different angles in different conditions, and even changing the angles during maneuvers. So it's that is always going to be one of those features that people try different things. This is becoming kind of... We don't need commentators today. I'll tell you what's going to happen. They're going to tack on them and protect the left side of the race course. Done. Thank you.
What I found so interesting is that camera angle we saw before behind the boat. When they exited the tack, they were still pointing higher than Emirates Team New Zealand. So, you know, there's a lot of speculation about the loading of these two boats, and I think it's pretty clear there's a pattern developing. This boat here, Luna Rossa likes to sail higher and a little bit slower, and Emirates Team New Zealand like to stick the bow down. They like to get it rumbling, go fast.
There's your case in point.
You can see your angles there, and it's really hard when you're the boat behind to live anywhere if you don't have that high mode. You can't live on someone's hip. You can't gauge off them. Really hard when you're behind. When you're in front, that mode's great. Not a problem at all.
Be interesting if the boundary saves the Kiwis coming over here right now. Will Luna Rossa get to the boundary, to the edge of the race course and tack and actually have to give the other boat clear air? There we go. Going right with them. But they stayed clean through most of that. I give the Kiwis credit during that last exchange.
They did pretty well considering it looked like they were in the gas, but maybe the wind was actually coming around to leeward. But the fascinating thing here is that Luna Rossa are probably going to lay the top mark. And Emirates Team New Zealand have one more tack. So that's another 50, 60 meters they're probably going to lose for this tack. It's starting to get really tough for them now.
When you talk about control, it seems to come, you look at this boat, when they're in front, they always look in control. They're not looking over their shoulder at all.
Still 200 meters, though, in a fast boat on a run to go. This is not breathe easy weather yet, if you're an Italian fan.
Well, if you're an Italian fan, for the last time in race number 5 of this Cup match on course A. You're leading, heading towards the home mark.
But nervous.
By 3, 2.
I'm not so sure right now, Kenny. I'm going to say right now that this boat is being sailed beautifully, and they are, again, in control. They have dictated terms from the get-go.
Not their best rounding, though, I have to admit.
Pretty good, thanks.
Emirates Team New Zealand still the chaser in race number 5. 27 seconds at the 4th mark. 23 at the final mark before they head home.
I don't know, you've got to say, if you are able to close a bit of time down going upwind while sailing in someone's dirt, your boat's going fast. And I think after this race is going to be, once again, another regroup.
Is it another helmet off situation?
I wouldn't be
for Glenn
surprised
Ashby?
if the helmet comes off again by a few people and there's a huddle and they dissect the start, because besides the start, they've sailed very well. The boat's sailed very well, the geometry's going well. They're getting pushed around the course, obviously, but they're doing well to keep it as close as they can. But if you're giving them 20 seconds, 15 seconds at the start, you're not going to win.
Shirley, are there passing lanes out there right now?
Oh, it's a beautiful day out here, Kenny. You know, textbook summer sea breeze day. It's very, very even. And Rossa, they've bossed this race course, haven't they? They've gone exactly where they wanted to go. Currently just right down the middle and the maximum pressure. It's hard to see, barring a mistake or, you know, a bit of a massive error by Rossa, it's hard to see how the Kiwis are going to get past.
A little pressure on now. And a little lefty again.
Calm, cool, and collected. There's no other way. They're supposed to be commentating for us. We're playing into their hands, and they're not giving us anything, Steve.
Well, we could say that Emirates Team New Zealand handed them the ball and said,
stand by.
go run with it.
3, 2, 1.
Breeze is right up around 10 knots for both boats right now. Still kind of a 12 or so degree wind shifts across the water. That tide is, the current is with the boats right now. And
when you think that they are very close to snatching their 3rd win of an America's Cup match, a team that has had its confidence building and building and building, how big a deal now as you head into race number 6? It feels a bit like moving day in the Golf Masters. When you want to make a play, you make the big play.
Well, they're making a big play. They're not aiming for the center of the green anymore. They're aiming for the pins, you know, and it all comes. I think the second race of the day, Nathan, is the pressure race, because you're the Kiwis right now. All of a sudden, what pressure you had, which I'm assuming is considerable, is absolutely ratcheted up another level.
Well, yeah, the pressure's on both teams. Obviously, Team New Zealand are down, and they need to level today. These guys, they want to convert. They want to go 4-2 up. You know, if they can convert, they're on their way. But if Prada don't win the next one and it's back to even, then it's another breath of relief for everyone in New Zealand. And we start again tomorrow. It's fantastic sport, isn't it?
We are in the final seconds of race number 5 in the America's Cup match, and it has been another dominant performance by the challenger of record. Rossa, Prada Pirelli will cross the line and go 3-2 up in the match.
Stand by. 2, 1.
And why wouldn't you celebrate if you're a small contingent surrounded by Kiwi fans? Make the most of it as Emirates Team New Zealand come across and now go into a thinking mode. How do we go and win race number 6?
They're not making it easy on themselves in those pre-starts. When do we start ratcheting up the pressure on Mr. Burling? You know,
give it a couple more days.
In your press conference questions.
Yeah.
Confirmation of the result in race 5 of the 36th America's Cup match Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli take the W by 18 seconds. Man, oh man, have we got a match on our hands. Race 6, the America's Cup match. Rossa, Prada, Pirelli on port entry. Will it favour them? Is it a coincidence? Not after race 5, and Emirates Team New Zealand will take the starboard entry. And now, if you're an Italian fan, you're sitting watching this, and you're 3-2 up, Nathan Arteridge, and you go, wow, we might have one hand or a finger on this cup.
Well, I tell you what, if they win this race, no one in Italy is going to be going back to bed this morning.
Shirley Robinson out on chase 1. You almost feel like the tension's just ramped up again.
Stephen, it's a big moment, isn't it? I mean, that Italian boat seems to have options in the starting box, and the Kiwis, they have to unpick that 2 minutes and sort it out. And they did it yesterday, and they won with a big margin. I mean, their boat is fast. They just need to put it in the right place.
Up in Heli 1, Freddie Carr, Ineos Team UK grinder. What is the course telling you right now?
It's a bit of a repeat of race 5, to be honest. That left-hand side looks strong. That's not where the spectator fleet is. This huge spectator fleet, I can't emphasize enough. You can see the breeze to the north side of it, the windward side, and then the breeze just lifts up and over. Again, I'm all about the left-hand side here. On the right-hand side, the other thing in this late afternoon, there's some real big holes in the pressure now as well. There's real big patches of no wind. You've got to pick where to choose to tack and jive.
This is the race committee. The wind sampling period is complete, and this race will start on schedule.
So confirmation from race committee, we have a race. What must be going through the head now of Peter Burling and that afterguard?
Oh, pressure. There's no question, right? Listen, we've all sailors have gone through slumps or even moments of questioning yourself and your strategy and your game plan. He's got to shake that off and just go back to the basics, back to your roots, back to the game plan, and try to make it stick, try to make it work. But realize what the strengths of your competitor is, and that is that high, slow mode of the Italians, and stay out of that trap.
So Kenny, then, what is he going to do? What's his game plan? Like, we've talked about the tight to leeward off the line being to leeward, and that's what he executed well yesterday. Or you go wide and right. Given he knows the competition has the bigger foils and can handle the slower speeds, what's his option?
Well, I think that, so right now they're coming in from the starboard side. So right now they kind of don't have options. The options are being forced by the port tack boat. So of all times for these guys who are maybe questioning strategy, of all times to have that possible disadvantage starboard tack entry point, this is not one of them. It's not setting up perfectly for them right now. They're going to have to break this trend.
He's going to have to get creative, isn't he?
Yeah, exactly. And by the way, Spithill did get creative in that last start, did something a little different, and sure enough, it worked.
It'll be Luna Rossa, Prada, Pirelli in on port entry. They proved that you don't have to come in on port to win the race, as they did in the last race, coming in on starboard. And in come Emirates Team New Zealand, and the 2-minute mark in on starboard. Once again, let the games begin, and who can win the pre-start?
Out there, boys.
Tight again. Few seconds late by the Italians, and all of a sudden tight right behind, and you would think in a reasonably good position, they have to choose on Emirates Team New Zealand. Do they want to lead back or do they want to push?
You'd be brave to lead back with the small foils, wouldn't you? If you're leading back, trying to kill, it'd be hard. I'd be really shocked if they try and lead them back here.
25. 14 on the base. He's early.
They decided to push.
Going now. No, milking.
Need to power up, ragazzi.
Yeah, we'll be good here. Watch the boundary.
Spanner.
Thanks for doing. He's rounding up now on two boards.
Light here.
You'll see him there. We're late by the pin.
Yes.
Happy to come out relatively fast and forward. Good answer. That's right on pin time too. Good call. It's going to hang high through high.
We're going to go through the gas now.
Yes.
Too early for the pin, guys. It's still early here. Yep. Pick up here.
Nice.
So he didn't lead back. He decided to stay up high and keep it on the foils. And he's looking safe. He's not going to get shut out there. It's a question of can they pull the trigger and come rocketing off this line. Luna Rossa look like they are really struggling down there too.
Speed priority.
Struggling to get going there. Okay, a little bit transition Pete.
Coming in with heat right now. It looks like they're going to try to just roll right over the top. Luna Rossa looks late.
Trying to build here, guys.
Yes.
Very light, I think, yeah.
Winding up.
Wow.
Don't be overly.
Trimming up here. Sound like a full start.
Nice, mate.
The start of race number 6 in the match, and just when Emirates Team New Zealand needed to execute a good start, they've done the job. They need the win to stay in the match. Here we go. It's time to bring the heat.
Angle ready.
Absolutely a stunner by Jimmy Spithill. Just when we were crowning him the starting champion, he brought a lemon out there, Nathan. That wasn't even close, not even close.
Well, two things happened there. Pete Burling nailed it, and Jimmy Spithill got it completely wrong. I wonder, Shirley, if it went soft in the starting box or if the wind shifted left, because that was very, very strange to see Luna Rossa so late after they got to choose when to go back.
Nathan, well, Freddie spotted it from the helicopter. It's really, really patchy now. It's down to sort of 6-7 knots at the bottom of the course. Just really bad timing from the Italian outfit. They came round and just sat in a real light spot, never got going.
You could hear a little bit of panic in Jimmy's voice there. For the first time in this entire series, like, come on, boys, we've got to get it going. We've got to get it going. And obviously there wasn't enough breeze. At the angle he wanted to stay on, there was not enough breeze to actually get the thing going.
What is surprising, Kenny, is primarily they have been the kings of time on distance in this regatta.
Well, the wind gods, you know, they control your ultimate destiny. And the wind gods, you can't sail a boat fast through a lull, through a hole in the breeze, whether you want to or not. You can't will it through. The wind gods have to support what you want to do.
Freddie, you're up in the chopper. You would have had a great bird's eye view of that. Do you think part of that would have been the fact that they jibed and sailed through the gas of the boats?
Yeah, there was a bit of that. Nate, the standout thing for me in that pre-start is when Luna Rossa turned down in the box their mainsail, right above their mainsail, and it was twisted the wrong way. They basically weren't powered up as they were going into the bottom of the box, and you could just see the speed unwinding on the boat. You could hear the mainsail trimmer saying, power up, power up, power up. He talked about the runner, and it just unwound from that point. They never got back on their feet.
Land at 55 here.
And that's why we have you in the sky looking for things that we can't see in the booth.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Good info.
Different times of pressure. And just when you think you can take the confidence of a win, minutes ago, snap.
Yeah. Welcome to sport.
Don't you love it?
Okay.
Let's build, then we tack.
He'll get to the mountain,
Shirley, it looks shifty out there. We're looking at our charts and all of our wind direction charts, and all of a sudden it looks quite a bit more shifty. Almost we're seeing 15, 18, sometimes 20-degree wind shifts. That probably is not coincidental, since we're seeing big holes out on the race course and the wind strength as well.
We're quite late in the day, Kenny, and you know, this is Nathan's backyard. This is where he plays most days when he's at home, and this time of day, you know, it just starts to get really unstable, very patchy. You know, the lower wind speed is getting lower all the time, although we're still up, top speed still at 9 knots, so just up and down, more unstable than we've seen before.
Yeah, Shirley, you're right. You know, I have done a bit of time on the water, not as much as any of these guys, that's for sure. But one thing that happens is that after the 4 o'clock, the wind can start to evaporate, especially as that sun gets a bit lower. I've just had a real quick look at some observations all around the city, and it's a little bit of a sou'wester on the west coast. It's not looking like it's going to come in and shut this down completely, but yeah, all the observations right now are well below 10 knots, and the angles are starting to move around more than what we saw an hour ago, so could be some opportunities in this one for a couple of shifts, but 400 meters, you're going to need a lot of opportunities in this one, to be honest.
Heavy right turn.
Emirates Team New Zealand in a race they need to win to stay comfortably in this America's Cup match have executed a strong start, and on the first leg they will head into the top gate with a sizable advantage. Make no bones about it, it's a sizable advantage on Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli. They will lead around that top gate.
I think if I need to keep an eye on him. Yeah, he just tacked there now, but I think we'll be well above him. He'll be nice. 5 there. Just watch for the up. All clear, all clear, all clear, all clear, wherever you like. 20 seconds.
You do have to ask the question, Kenny, when you think you need to put the hammer down, as Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli could could have. They've dropped the ball.
Yeah, but I go back to what Freddie told us with that really great observation from the helicopter and how the mainsail did not pop. There could have been some sort of power plant problem there, and we'll have to find out.
Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, finally gets to the top gate on the first leg.
2, 1,
Check the margin. It's 51 seconds. There's some work to do,
I'll say.
Yeah, just at that moment where you think that you're getting your hands on the trophy and you're going to go 4-2 up.
Don't think that.
And I guarantee none of those guys are thinking that. We're just making it all up here. And the fans would be thinking that. But the guys on board, they just know one job, execute, execute, execute. And they'll be kicking themselves that they jived, they didn't get the power back, and they had a bad start.
So yesterday, it was a technical issue. Francesco Bruni, trouble getting the board down. Again today, another technical issue.
Well, you're making an assumption there.
I'm not making an assumption. I'm saying what we have seen.
Yeah, okay, possibly. I'm not prepared to go as far as you're going quite yet. No.
Pretty steady, same at
We've got the faces of Peter Burling, top right, Glenn Ashby, bottom left. They actually sit in the same cockpit, just on opposite sides, and when they tack and jibe, they switch sides here. So,
what do you think his right hand is on there, Nathan? He had his right hand on a handle right there.
So I'm pretty good buddies with Glenny. I ask him every couple of days, and he just smiles.
That's his right hand
and
spinning
says,
back.
You're not that good a buddy.
You're never going to find out. You're never going to find out. But hey, maybe if we get to talk to him after the race, we can ask him.
There you go.
I'm not getting amongst this, okay, again. You tried it on Tube yesterday.
You bailed him out, by the way.
His helmsman wanted to talk to him. We are on the first downward leg of race number 6 of this America's Cup match. The scoreline at the moment is Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, 3 race wins. Emirates Team New Zealand, 2 race wins. First to 7 wins the Cup, and we are a long way from that.
Hey, Shirley, back to you on kind of the mental side of this thing.
Soft out of this, boys.
It's interesting to me that the Kiwis have been a little rough around the edges with their sailing. And boy, if I were the Italians, I'd be thinking we're missing an opportunity to try to really end this early before these guys get sharper, don't you think?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I mean, I wouldn't go as far and say the Kiwis are rusty, but you can tell they have not raced all summer like the Italians have. And it just the nuances of it, you know, just the positioning and the timing. You know, it's split seconds, and, you know, that's every race that goes by. Glenn said it this morning. You know, every race that goes by, they're just getting better and better and sharper and sharper. So I think you're absolutely right. Missed opportunity.
Emirates Team New Zealand have responded as they go down that bottom gate for the first time and swing it around. And why wouldn't they be happy? You can hear the crowds probably out on course A getting excited about that. They know this team needs to win this race to stay in the Cup. You didn't want to go into, or you don't want to go into tomorrow 2 races behind. I have to ask the question. Your first race of the day, race number 5, and you start, you basically don't get it right. Suddenly, you pull off the master stroke. It's like, where has that been?
Well, it's all different. This is, sounds the same, but it's kind of snowflake material. Everything's different out here, right? Every race is different. Every maneuver is different. Every start procedure is different. There's never 2 the same, and you got your chance. It's the beauty of sailing. You get your chance in a second.
Emirates Team New Zealand leading this boat. Luna Rossa, Prada Pirelli, the challenger of record. And they're trailing now by 1 minute and 7 seconds. Fans just a little somber at this point, but certainly not out of the match.
The young girl they keep going to there is Francesco Bruni's daughter. She was very excited in the first race and wearing a heart on her sleeve right now, isn't she? She's a little bit deflated. Fair enough.
I'd like to continue the conversation about the starts, though, Kenny, because we've been sitting here talking racing for 3 months, and you guys have been telling me about things that are set up and the software that can do this, you can do that. And yes, there is the human element, but surely when you get to this point, you know how you're going to play.
No, it is, but Nathan, it is the human element. That's the beauty of all this. We can talk about all the computers we want, the timing to the line, everything else. The computer has to, or the person has to pull the trigger and steer the boat. And you know, it's not easy, especially when we're dealing in these marginal foiling conditions.
Yeah, and you got to interpret the information that comes to you, because the information you get in the computer software for the starting, it'll tell you, okay, you're killing 5 seconds. But what's it based on? It's based on an average wind speed number, average wind speed direction. If the wind speed changes or you sail through some gas of another boat, you're wrong. So clearly, part of the role of the sailors is to understand their software and read it and interpret it and make the most of it. You know, Freddie, you've been racing here a few weeks ago. How important is the software in the starts, and you know, how critical is it to really have a human element in it?
Oh, the software is everything, like your tactical aid, as we'd call it, and that's giving Ben and Giles, in our case, all the information back to the line, and critically, Nathan, like the time to burn back to the line, and you live and die off that number. Just to roll on into my next point, mate. The picture is really, really changing up here. At the start of the race, the dead spots of wind were about a tennis court size. We're now looking at big patches of no wind on the water that are about the size of a rugby pitch. So this race is a long way from over. You talk about the mistake difference. There could be some boats doing some manoeuvres and touching down from what I'm seeing up here. It's changing very quickly.
And that just adds the intrigue of another race in the America's Cup. Freddie Carr, the UK, Ineos Team UK grinder up on Halley 1. Shirley Robinson, our double Olympic gold medalist, out on Chase Boat 1. So just remember the words of Freddie right now. Could we see touchdowns?
That's really interesting. It kind of reminds me of one of the races we had in December between these two boats. It got lighter and lighter, and on that final downwind, they weren't foiling. You know, they really struggled to get up and get foiling. So, you know, if Freddie's right and there are bigger patches of less wind and someone falls in a hole and falls off the foils, well then, as you say, Kenny, you know, these light wind races become very interesting all of a sudden.
There you go.
Does it go advantage Luna Rossa with those bigger foils and touching down?
It could, but we've seen also the Kiwis are just good at keeping those average speeds high. Remember in that same race, Nathan, I believe Blair Tuke asked, hey, do you think we should jibe instead of tack going upwind to stay on the foils? So that's how important staying on the foils is.
So important. You live and die on your apparent wind. Your apparent wind gives you the speed, it gives you the lift from the foils, and you know, if it's too light to tack, sometimes these guys might have to jibe around.
Shirley Robinson out on Chase 1. Shirley, if you're Luna Rossa, what are your options right now?
Well, keep going, hope for the best. I mean, we've been watching the Kiwis a lot, Stephen. When they were off on their own, they look so slick. They're sailing like a small foiling boat, like a moth, you know, heels on top of them, bow down. They just really look like they just get going and get rumbling once they get free of the competition. It's so impressive.
Virtual Eye giving you an understanding of where both these boats are on the course. Course A, as Emirates Team New Zealand come into the top gate for the third time and will complete the halfway stage of race number 6 in this 36th America's Cup match.
5 away from them, Pete. 3, 2, 1.
Emirates Team New Zealand rounding the top gate, heading for the 4th leg now, downwind. 1 minute and 7 seconds was the last advantage.
What do you need, brother? Oh, it's a little bit less hill. Yeah, come on. Look, that's real nice. Sea laying that other gate. Negative.
Yeah, this is about to turn into a really big lead here. There's still one more maneuver away on Luna Rossa, and I think they're going to struggle to make this gate, Nathan, and that one more attack. Not only is it another attack, another maneuver, another loss, but they're going to be following the Kiwis to that side of the race course. They don't even get a split here.
Okay, pressure.
Yeah, these guys are sort of going bad to us. Maybe they can climb into a high mode and just lay. If they lay there, it's definitely a big saving. But,
nice left here.
It's going to be well over a minute by the time they get around the mark, isn't it?
Early try, boys.
Yeah.
They're going to make me look bad here, I think, and maybe make it. Yeah, they do, of course. Thanks, fellas.
Well, they picked up 2 seconds on the upwind leg, did Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli, but that's still a minute and 5 seconds behind Emirates Team New Zealand. And if it stays like this, Kenny, if it stays like this, and we talk about the confidence that Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli have gained, already 3 race wins, but then if it stays like this, and they get bashed here, they're being bashed, what does that do to you psychologically?
They're being bashed for one reason only. All this is doing, all today is done at the end of the day. If this turns out to be the, you know, the lead for the Kiwis remains around the course, all this means is the pressure is turned up on the starting helmsman. This is becoming that's all you guys at this press conference are going to talk about tonight. That's all the sailing world is talking about. Can Peter Burling or Jimmy Spithill get the start right? So, you know.
So, Kenny, what you're saying is that it's actually going to be the best sailor who wins the America's Cup and maybe not the fastest boat.
Oh, my goodness.
It's a big call, but if you look at 6 races now, it's a pretty...
Well, okay, which one's the faster boat?
Well, they've all said there's nothing in it.
Exactly. So what a great thing for the America's Cup and for sailing if it is the better sailor. I'd like to, the definition of a faster boat, I don't think we know what the faster boat is here yet. That's still my...
There have been questions saying, I wonder what it would be like in windier conditions, and would people get to see potentially how quick Te Rehotai is.
Well, remember, it's not about the high speed. I keep saying it's about the lap time. In any given wind strength, it's about how quick you do these loops around the race course. The high speed doesn't matter. It's almost like how
But doesn't a fast boat win the America's Cup?
Your definition of fast is incorrect, my friend.
We're just picking on Kenny a bit at the moment. We'll stop in a second.
It's almost like how irrelevant it is time between the boats at the marks. That's how irrelevant.
Ouch. Look at the biometrics. The grinders doing all their work. Look at the gap. Closing on 820 meters between the two as we're about to complete leg number 4 in this 6th race of the 36th America's Cup, and it is Emirates Team New Zealand. You can imagine the noise being made on those spectator boats that are sitting outside a cracking virtual ice stadium. And Emirates Team New Zealand complete the 4th leg and will head up for the second to last time on this course. Why wouldn't that crowd be cheering? Quite surprised, not jumping up and down. But they are happy on a glorious Saturday afternoon in Auckland City.
-2. Seconds.
Hey, traveler here.
It's a bit marginal if you can make it.
Yeah. Right.
We're thinking one and right.
I don't know about you, but the body language and the tone of the way they're talking now has come right off the pedal.
Yeah, but again, I still maintain that as soon as they finish, it's irrelevant going back into the barn tonight, and they're going to be ready to go tomorrow. Let's go win a start.
2, 1, 4 down.
Just remember, the Italians are emotional people, and that's what I love about it.
I don't know if that Spithill guy is, though.
We're going to call him quasi-Italian. Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli about to complete the 4th leg. And the gap has lengthened somewhat on the downward leg in favour of Emirates Team New Zealand. The gap now 1 minute and 13 seconds.
Shirley, one thing you keep talking about is how different the Kiwi boat looks when they kind of get out in the open race course. A big difference between last race and this race is the Kiwis kept it close. They didn't gain. They didn't really lose in a tough spot. but the Italians are not able to keep it close right now. This is a whitewash going on out here.
Yeah, Kenny, I mean, I'm sure we'll go through the numbers later, but that's just how it looks really from on the water, that as soon as they're free and they're sailing their own race, they just have a groove, they have an extra kind of gear. And for those viewers who sail small foiling boats, you'll recognize it. Pete Burling just looks like he's in his moth, you know, feeling every gust and really, you know, really sailing the boat well. I mean, I think we have to give credit to Pete and Blair and his team. I mean, under tremendous pressure, and they executed that start well. As you say, they're learning quickly. And Nathan, you've sailed against them a lot. I mean, they're good under pressure. And I just get the feeling that he's really kind of getting his confidence now.
Yeah, Shirley, you're spot on there. If you've won an America's Cup and you've won a gold medal, you're bloody good under pressure, that's for sure. They're very good sailors, and I can tell you one thing, they might have felt a bit of stress between races, but look at this, they're coming out and they're storming this one.
Let's go up to Heli 1, because Freddie, the last time we spoke to you, said there were big patches of nothingness. What are you seeing now?
A little bit earlier.
Yeah, those patches of nothingness are still there, and it's still the top right-hand side of the course that poses that risk to the boats where Emirates Team New Zealand have just tacked. I've just slipped into spying mode a bit up here, which is great for me, and I was watching both boats tack, and I just saw the two aft grinders on board Emirates Team New Zealand spin round, and it looks like they're flying the boat to me. I think that's Andy Maloney and Josh Jr., and as a grinder, to think that you go around the leeward mark, your max heart rate, trimming everything on, they say standby tack, and you have to completely decompress and then fly that boat in the turn. That was pretty awesome to see from up here.
You jealous?
I'd love some time off the handles, that's for sure. I just spin my arms all day. I don't get to do any of the fun stuff.
Freddie Carr, the Ineos Team UK grinder up on Heli 1 for us today, and he talked about those biometrics, didn't he? And suddenly they come down a little bit, but then the tacking will go up a little bit for these grinders. Pretty calm team, that lot.
They do it a little different. And Freddie, coming back to you for a second, you were explaining to us this morning about how the Italians do it, maybe a little different from some of the other boats, as far as grinding and what they're grinding and how much they have to actually grind.
Yeah, there's a couple of ways of skinning the problem of moving the Traveller. The Traveller's the most dynamic thing in the boat. It controls your roll control, so how much the boat is leaning over. You can use an accumulator, which is a hydraulic bomb. You could charge that up and give your mainsail trimmer unlimited power on the Traveller. That's a lot of hard work, but it's a very good way of doing it. Or you can sail more live, and I think what we see here between Emirates Team New Zealand, they charge a bomb and then give the mainsail trimmer unlimited Traveller power, and Emirates Team New Zealand sail a little bit more live, but what that allows them to do is their grinders to go low windage, and I really do like the low windage kneeling grinding style that Prada have got.
One might suggest in this race right now that Emirates Team New Zealand have dropped a bomb on Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli as they head into the top gate for the final time and look towards that homeward leg. Emirates Team New Zealand trailing by a race win, and on the current scale of what we're watching, they should level this race up. Around the top mark they go and head home to complete race 6.
He's coming up wind here, please. For sure or not? He is at the moment. Happy to go earlier. Yep, go down. Or down. Yep. Perfect. Gotcha. Let's come up.
So, Freddie, interesting comment you made before about how the power's going to use. I've been trying to work out who trims the main on Emirates Team New Zealand, because Glenn Ashby's always on the leeward side of the boat. Do you guys have any idea who's trimming the mainsail?
I don't. I'd be having a guess, but my guess is that Glenn Ashby sets up like the sail shape potentially, and maybe Pete has the roll control. So it's much like having the tiller and the main sheet in your hand if you're a 49er sailor. And like you, Nath, like growing up, going through the 49er, maybe that's what it's used to. He's able to perfectly control the roll of the boat with a twist grip for the traveller and also his wheel and the rudder movement.
Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli for the final time around the top gate, and this is 6th race of the America's Cup. Gone very quiet on board.
2, 1,
here we go.
Clear.
Mark running they do and head home. And it's now 1 minute and 22 seconds. Oof. That's a lead and a half.
Still good pass here.
Back to the modes for a second, Nathan. We were looking at statistics earlier where this boat averages somewhere around 2 or 3 knots faster. The Kiwi boat does around the race course, 2 or 3 knots faster. But they've actually been traveling upwards of 1,600 meters on average further around the race course. This low and fast mode, 1,600 meters is half a leg. That's how much distance they're doing. It's actually an incredible amount of extra distance.
It's a huge amount of extra distance, and I think it's all down to the design philosophy of the boat. It's not because Peter and the guys want to go low and fast. It's because of those smaller foils. You see they're just dropping the foil there now. They've got the torpedo bulb on the foil. They've got a much smaller area, and the only way you can get that foil to work in its range is to actually go a faster mode. So upwind, you'll naturally see them going lower and faster, and the sail plan will need to balance and match that. So far, we haven't seen many windy races, nothing over 12 knots. If we get a day of over 15 knots of breeze in the coming days, I just can't wait to see how fast that boat's going to go, because everything that I know about the design of these boats tells me that those foils are going to be absolute rockets when it gets windy.
We are in the final seconds of the 6th race of the 2021 America's Cup match. Emirates Team New Zealand came in trailing by 1. They have produced what you might call a Super Saturday performance when it mattered.
Just drops 100 metres straight in front of us.
Emirates Team New Zealand come across the line, and we are still locked up in this match. It is now 3-all between Emirates Team New Zealand and Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli.
Regatta starts tomorrow.
Who wants to round up and hold in?
You heard Glenn Ashby say that as well?
Oh, I did?
Yeah, I heard him in the comms in the background.
He's a smart guy.
Yeah, you guys must be linked together, but he's right. You guys are right. The regatta starts tomorrow. We're back to effectively 0-all. Yeah.
I was talking to Shirley Robertson pre this race, and there was one line that came to mind, and when we think about where we're at right now as we wait for Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli to cross the line, is who blinks first? Who blinks first?
All on the start right now. I hate to put the pressure on these two boys, but Mr. Burling and Mr. Spithill, this is starting to ratchet the pressure up, because it's becoming very obvious to me, and I think most of the rest of the sailing world, win the start, win the race.
I've got to say, if I'm the leader of any of these campaigns, I'm going, oh, I don't know what to do. How are we going to win a race? How can we take control?
No, you can't take control. Let the sailors sail. They've gotten to this point, and do not try to change things up now.
Luna Rossa Prada Pirelli finally coming into the finish zone for race 6. And it's a start that was costly. Freddie Carr saw things that we didn't see and told us exactly what went down, and it's turned into a race loss. But it's still 3-all in the America's Cup match. It's anybody's still. Confirmation of the result in race 6 of this America's Cup match. Emirates Team New Zealand lock it up at 3-all with a 1 minute and 41 second victory.